All right, welcome. Thank you for joining today's Tableau Server Admin User Group. We have awesome speaker, Tamas Foldi, who is the Tableau Z Master. Without any further ado, let's get started. Thomas?
Thank you, Mark. Thank you for having here. I just like to talk today about one of the topics what I like the most, which is like to properly monitor your Tableau server environment, how to create like proactive alerting and find out like what's happening on your system before your actual users find out. So it's really the way how can you avoid like angry customers or yelling at you, because you will be able to find and solve problems before even they occur. So quick introduction. I'm actually Tamas Foldi, one of the Tableau Zen masters, and Mark said that I'm the Tableau Server Zen master, which is definitely not true because Mark is also Tableau Server Zen master, which is again, the Zen master program is something like a most valued professional and also like the member of the community, which means that I'm trying to share all the knowledge and expertise what I'm gaining during my daytime job, which is in a consultation company called Starschema, where we are trying to help and actually helping one of the biggest Tableau customers to be successful on their data-driven journey. When I'm not doing my day job, I like to do these honest traditional software engineering. So I still like the code because that's make me, complete. And especially like things where I can do some, functional programming and hacking, doing some security maybe, because of my Eastern European background. And I'm always using this picture, and I just realized today that, I'm way older than this. So you can imagine me like that guy, less handsome and more old. Anyway, let's get started. So why do we need a monitoring solution? So there are a few things. First of all, you have to know what's your Tableau server status. Is it like healthy? Is it available? And you have to know if some of the services are not available, if the background jobs are just failing, your extracts are failing, or one of the nodes is degraded or ran out from disks and causing a lot of issues. You also need to know real-time usage statistics. So that's also like a good way to understand what's going on your server. If you see how many active users are using it, how many report openings are happening over the times, because you can find anomalies. You can find, if I would say only 20% of the users are hitting your server, then something might be wrong. Maybe not with your server environment, but with the network or the load balancer, something related to your infrastructure. So you need to get these real-time statistics to find out like what could be wrong. And also you need to monitor your Tableau server's performance, starting from CPU metrics to also find out what's the average report opening times and see how it correlates with the load on your server to find out like different issues and solve it again before the business realizes. So what are your options? On the first round, what you can do really easily is to use Tableau server's built-in alerts. So when you go to TSM UI, you can set up basic monitoring things like sending an email when you run out from disk space, or send an email if you run out from licenses or one of the server process dies, or like when an extract refresh failure. This is, I would say, a good thing. So again, something which needs to be enabled on all environments. You just have to specify an SMTP email server to make sure that these emails can go out. But the the problem with this that it's not really comprehensive. You don't have performance information. You don't necessarily understand like what's going on your server. It's purely and only for alerts. And also, if you can see the configuration screen, you can't even specify like where on which disk should it look for the disk space. Like you can't really, I would say, tailor for your specific needs. So level 1, it's not comprehensive, you have to set it up. And last but not least, if your Tableau server completely disappears from this planet, or your data center just, goes into a different dimension, you are not going to have any uh, any notification, because monitoring rule number 1, you should always monitor things from a different server to make sure that you can send an alert if your monitored object goes down. So it's built in on a server, but if the server goes down, you are not going to be notified. Level 2 is when you again go to your next level. You can download this tool called tabcmd, which is a Tableau open source community build solution, and it's really for monitoring performance metrics from your Tableau server. It's good for completing the built-in monitoring. It will give you information about like CPU, I/O, memory consumptions on your Tableau cluster nodes. It can also get interesting metrics from the GMX part. I will talk about that. What that GMX is, like external cache usage, how many, I don't know, sessions you have. It's a pretty neat tool. It has like 2 big problems. The first, it's using the Postgres database as a backend. So if you happen to have a larger deployment, then it's not going to be scale and not going to be responsive. The second is that it's Windows only, and I don't see that it will be ported to Linux anytime soon. And again, it really ships with Tableau dashboards. So if you'd like to have some alerting on top of these data sets, the only way is to use some other tools or create data alerts inside Tableau. And that's, again, it's not going to be real time. It will be clunky, and you are still trying to send email things from the object what you are monitoring, which is, again, not necessarily the most clever idea. So tabcmd is great to understand the performance, but it's not the best for actual monitoring and alerting. And again, you can have performance issues on large environments. So what if you are spending some good old money and buy this so-called admin add-on? It's an additional license to your Tableau server, which also ships this resource monitoring tool. So this resource monitoring tool is the new name of Interworks' Power Tools. It's went through an acquisition, and it's a strategic product now inside Tableau. They hope that it will be good enough combined with the content migration tool and another value-added products to drive additional license revenue from us server admins. Given the fact that they ported it to Linux, it seems that it's highly developed, and again, it's pretty strategic. However, again, you have to pay for it. That's number 1. And the second is that it's still not as open as other solutions, the ones what I would show later to you. And so it ships with some metrics. It's really, I would say, wired nicely together, but to add new functionalities, it's something what you need to rely on Tableau. And what we discussed even before this meeting, that we also know like what information is missing from it. So I wouldn't say that it's complete, but again, it's a decent solution if your environment is not huge, then it will also be able to handle your load. It's also Postgres based, so it has also some scalability issues, but works and does the job. So if you're lucky enough to have this option, then it might be good for your use case. So what I would suggest is something different, something where you have to work a little bit more, and that's this so-called TIG stack, where we are using Telegraf, InfluxDB, and Grafana, and it's a pretty standard combination in infrastructure and application monitoring. All of these components are free and open source. In fact, I'm also did some contribution to Telegraf as a project, and also my code changes were accepted. So even if you'd like to complete these tools with your own custom functionalities, you can definitely do that. But you most probably wouldn't need that. Anyway, so what's Telegraf? Telegraf is a small agent written in a Go language, and the reason why they choose Google's programming language is because they wanted to have something extremely low resource consuming, small single binary application. So the whole installation is just copy this binary, add a configuration, and that's it. And it can collect a lot of information from your servers. It's not Tableau Server specific. It comes with a lot of plugins, but it has also plugins for Tableau Server specifically. The way how you can imagine is that you just point Telegraf to your system and say, I'm interested in all the operating system and hardware related metrics. Also show me the Tableau Server status using this plugin. And by the way, I'd like to see what's the response time between the load balancer, what my company is using in my Tableau server to see if the connection is working well. So it's a really great tool, very small, low overhead, no dependencies, and that's the agent what I would suggest to you. And also, it not just it can just get information from REST APIs or from hardware components or from the operating systems. It in fact can parse log files as well, so it can incrementally look into your SQL log files or web server Tomcat log files and send it over to your database. And as we speak about databases, then on the right side you can see InfluxDB, which is one of my favorite time series database. And the key here is to use the right database for the right work and for the right workload. Why Postgres is good, and again, it's a generic database, and probably that's why Tableau, Tabmo, and also Interworks used for monitoring purposes, but it just doesn't perform in real-time circumstances, in real-time use cases. So time series databases are really designed for machine-generated data sets, especially like infrastructure logs or metrics, IoT, and it supports real-time querying and real-time ingestion. Plus, it has a few nice goodies. You can configure tables, or they call it metrics, but practically those are tables in these databases, and say that, okay, keep all of my log files or CPU or memory information for milliseconds granularity for 1 week. So I'd like to not downscale it. But after 1 week, I'm only interested in the hourly aggregation. And after 6 months, I'm only interested on daily, or I would say 6 hours aggregation. So you can downscale data continuously. And you can also set retention when you'd like to just forget your old data, because again, when we are talking about like CPU consumptions, it's valuable for the last few days on the lowest granularity, but on the long run, it's not necessarily important. And these kind of time series databases are providing the functionality, while in Postgres, it's just your table is just growing and it's not optimized to get like recent data faster than the older one. Anyway, Grafana is the visualization engine for infrastructure monitoring. It's I think it looks pretty decent. Well, it's not Tableau because Tableau obviously is the most beautiful software we can all collectively imagine, but it looks pretty nice. And as I mentioned, what it makes really great that it's optimized for real-time monitoring. I can set up that I'd like to refresh this dashboard every 5 seconds, and you might see that this refresh icon will pop up. And as you can see, even for like larger data sets, to refresh something every 5 seconds or refresh a dashboard, it takes not more than 100 milliseconds. And it's really built that when you press the refresh, you don't see spinners. The data is just immediately refreshed. And it makes a really great visualization tool for infrastructure metrics. And again, I don't know, you can do some cool things. It's colorful, have things what we never ever should use because Tableau told us to use this kind of gorgeous. Anyway, the reason why we should use this tool because it's extremely fast and designed to handle infrastructure monitoring. And by the way, you can add annotations to data points. So when something goes down on your system, you can say like, wow, and save it along with the data set. So it's for collaboration, for monitoring things, and can do alerting. I will talk about that later. But it's one of my favorite when it comes to infrastructure monitoring visualization. So what do we need to add to our TIG stack? I think operating system level metrics, CPU, memory, IO wait times, network, latencies, that's a no-brainer. We need to have that. Network information, I used to set up, so in many cases, issues are isolated to different geographic segments. So the way how I like usually monitoring is to add one Telegraf agent to each and every office location, let's say to Cincinnati and I don't know, Los Alamos and Singapore, maybe, I don't know, to Europe as well, and see what's the latency and what's the status from those endpoints are and visualize on the map, because it could happen that a European team has some connectivity issue, and that's also something what you'd like to monitor because it's also impacting one of your user base. Tableau server status, okay, if your server goes down, you need to detect that. GMX counters, that's an interesting part. GMX means that you can go inside the Tableau server processes, which are written in Java, and get information about practically everything. You can get information how many background jobs failed, how many reports open are failed, how many actually succeeded. So that's the most granular information you can get from Tableau server, and it has really useful things. I will show it later, but let's say if you're interested, cache hit ratio, how many data source errors you have, that's where you need to get this information. Optionally, log files or Postgres database logs, you can also visualize, but I wouldn't say that that's like really required for all everything. And one thing is key, that some of these can actually be retrieved from the Tableau server's Postgres repository. But I would really avoid to connect and put some additional pressure on Tableau server's Postgres repository. It's still a single node application. It's its replication is like, it has only like a master and a slave, and on the primary node, when you are constantly hitting with large queries, it can slow things down. So when you are trying to find your source of monitoring data, you need to make sure that it's not impacting your server. So the monitoring shouldn't slow your server down, and that's why I would avoid using Postgres to get information. So how to install this PIG stack? We can just, there are some good install guides. It's really easy to install both on Linux and Windows. I also wrote some scripts to install it on Kubernetes if you'd like to do it in Kubernetes, but the community itself and also the websites explain the process, and it's fairly easy to do it. So let's start with operating system level monitoring. The way how I usually set up things is create Telegraf configurations and start adding input plugins. And this is like an input plugin configuration section. You are just saying that, hey, show me all my CPU, disk IO, memory related information. And as soon as you add these configuration options, you can download a lot of community built Grafana dashboards and start visualizing your infrastructure. So let me quickly go to this system dashboard and start opening one of my Tableau servers. So after I set up this Telegraf and just taking the basic metrics, I can see how the load looks like, how many processes do I have, how the CPU consumptions look like. And again, it's way faster and way easier to set up than Tableau. And again, if I just want to refresh the data to get the latest information, as you can see, it takes really like 1/10 of a second to switch between my nodes or to refresh the dashboard. Again, you can see memory data, interrupts, CPU usage for all the CPUs combined and individually. Again, it's really comprehensive and comes handy when you have like, I don't know, IO caps and like to understand like which disk causing your issue. And just coming back here, it took like 12 lines to configure to get that comprehensive dashboards out of the box with an exceptional performance. And it's all free. So what can be better than free stuff? What else? We need to get also the status information from Tableau. So we need to understand how our server behaves. And in the past, the only way to do it, and it's also used today as well, this so-called server info.xml. And the way how it works, that when you log onto your Tableau server, you just need to add like /admin/server info.xml to the end of the URL, end of your hostname, and it will return with this XML document all of your machines. This is a single node cluster, and tell about the informations like, again, my hyper instance is active and everything is active, by the way. So the system status is active. The advantage of this system info.xml that it's really easy to integrate. You can whitelist IP addresses like your monitoring cluster, monitoring host which can access this information without authentication. So it's pretty decent. One thing is also missing, and that's why I like another way to get the information, is this is the reason, because if your Tableau server is down, you don't know that it's down because you shut it down or it's down because it's died. So if you do a TSM stop because you are in a planned maintenance mode, it will still alert you because you don't know that it was an intentional stopping. However, there is another new API in Tableau called the TSM API, which is not highly advertised in the Tableau world, and it's fairly great. You can automate a lot of Tableau server tasks by using this TSM API. It's practically the same what the TSM command line application is using, but you can do it from remote endpoints, and you can start and stop the server, do some backups, view log files, view the server status, and change the topology. So you don't have to use the TSM. You can automate and integrate with your monitoring tool or with your other application. In fact, it comes with a TSM API status endpoint, where after you just invoking this /status API endpoint, it returns like the server status. And what is really useful is you see what's the status and what's the requested state. So you know if it's running because it has to run, or it's not running because it shouldn't run. And combining these two status, you can be clever and only send alerts when you have to do it. So for intentional stops, you just don't cause any unnecessary alerting. All right, so let's see how this looks like in Grafana. And again, the Grafana integration using a Tableau plugin, and how to use this Tableau plugin is also documented in one of my previous posts. And if you're interested, please have a look at it. What you can get, so again, this was like only from the infrastructure and operating system monitoring, but as you switch to a Tableau status dashboard, that gives you like a different view. First of all, you can see what's the information based on the Tableau server's system.xml, and what's the status from the TSM API. Busy means that all the backgrounders are heavily working, and in this case, I can see here as well that on my backgrounder node, which is node 3, all the backgrounders are in yellow, meaning that all of them are busy. So the system is in a busy state. And again, I can just speak and see that all of my hyper servers were busy at that time. I can see that I had a WSQL server issue at that time, and if I need it, I can go and drill down. Also from the TSM, I can see what's the status on each node, each service, what was the current error message, if there is any. Right now, the SML service is stopped, and I can see that it's disabled, so it's not really an issue. But by the way, when the monitoring is run, that was the error message. And again, this message is also really useful when you like to understand different error messages. So that's like one interpretation, but it's Grafana, so you can be really creative how to draw and how to create your charts. But I used to like this heat map style and table style visualization for Tableau status, as well as having like here these big numbers or big text to understand like what's going on. So what else? GMX, I think that's the most interesting piece. That's where you can get information about your system on the most granular way. So Tableau GMX is getting Tableau specific performance counters. I will show it in a few minutes. What does that mean? It's disabled by default. You have to enable it. It doesn't have any security, so you need to firewall these ports, and that's it. So what I'd like to show is how to get information about like how many vSQL sessions. So how many current active concurrent sessions do we have in vSQL? It's easy to get this information in real time with GMX, but to get this information from Postgres will require a lot of heavyweight queries. So let me switch to console mode and how can I switch? Probably this will be it. So let's share my terminal. I hope it will be fast, so don't be too scared. So that's one of my Tableau servers, and with this command, I can see where are my GMX ports, so I can list ports with TSM, look only for GMX, and I can find that this is my vSQL server. With this GMX term, I can go and visualize things from command line. So let's see what's inside in this vSQL server. So let's start opening the server and see what domains we have. There are like basic Java information, but that's the one what we will actually need. So let's see what information we have in this Tableau Health GMX domain. We can get information, it seems, from vSQL server and search server. So that's both are packaged into the vSQL server. And if I go deeper, and again, don't be scared, it will take a lot of time, but I really want to show this. So it shows that we are inside the vSQL server. We know that we have inside the vSQL server this M bean, this management bean, which describes an attribute called performance metric. And when we read this performance metric, that's where the magic happens. So let me show it to you. It's returned with a lot of information, and all of these are easily could be replicated to our Grafana InfluxDB system. So I can see how many active sessions do I have on my server, how many bootstraps event happened, how many, I don't know, external native query cache hits do we have, how many dashboards were read from the XML definitions from the file store, and how many were cached. Everything is here. You can see how many sessions are, I don't know, cached or in flight. What's the how many errors we have. So here, that's a treasure mine, and you can build really nice information, understanding the usage on your server. And that's just for vSQL, and you can do the same for vSport and for any other server. So that's, I think, pretty useful. So going back, that was the way how I was able to show like how many vSQL sessions I have. And yeah, I think it works pretty well. And if I switch to a single node server, I can also see here that I restarted the service like an hour ago, preparing for this presentation, remove one service, and on this test server, I don't have that much of a load. All right, so what else? Alerting, I think that's the piece what I like the most. So monitoring is great, but being a lazy person, I like to monitor things when something happens, and to find out is relatively easy if we have the right metrics. But to create something which only alerts me when it has to, I think that's a magic. So the way how it works, let me just go here. Let's create like a new dashboard, so I can show how things work. How can you create like a new dashboard and alert? So let's, I don't know, monitor the memory. I can select what is my cluster. Let's go to maybe this cluster. And I also can already see what I'm monitoring, and let's see like how many free swap space do I have. It looks nice, but it's hard to understand. And again, it's really designed, this tool was designed for monitoring, which means that I can easily change visualizations to show things like in gigabytes. And there is this nice alert tab here. And I can say that I'd like to have a new alert, like swap space running out. And if I'm evaluating this alert for every 5 minutes to avoid like flapping or just something goes up or down, I'm not interested. But if the swap is, I would say, below 500 megabytes perhaps, then it has to show me something. One thing I forget is always start axis from 0. So yeah, the min should be like 0 to avoid tricks. And now I can see that I added 500 megabytes, and if I have no data, that's bad. If it's below 500, which is also visualized, it's red, then send an alert, and I can just say that send a message to the Slack channel, and I can add like email, text message, Microsoft Teams rooms, whatever I want. I can define multiple things, and now when these conditions are met, it will notify me. I also did some checking before the meeting. So, but I would really encourage you to try this out and check all these channels and the endless possibilities of the alert. So I just want to see like what are these notification channels, and you can have like Discord, email, Hangouts, Teams, PagerDuty, and you can also call a webhook if you'd like to have your own automation around it. So this is it, and I put most of these things like how to set up a system like this step by step to on my blog post. I will share all the dashboards I shared today in this webinar. But again, the biggest selling point here is that you have an open, flexible system which is capable for everything. And if you need, I don't know, like an Excel log file or visualizing something really relevant to your system, it's hard to use Tableau's built-in tool. But using these open source technologies, it's just really a matter of clicks and adding a few configuration files. So that was it. If anyone has any questions, I'm really happy to answer everything. I mean, those things what actually I could answer.
Thank you.
So,
thank you very much, Thomas.
Yeah.
We actually still keep everyone muted for better recording quality. However, feel free to submit your questions by clicking the QA button.
I will definitely do that. So let's start. So
let's start with top. Yeah. Go ahead.
So for GMX counters, we need to turn on the GMX RMI for Tableau. Yes, it's turned off by default, but you need to enable it. But yeah. Are these slides shared? Yes, it's a question mark if we have an opportunity to send like a follow-up email, but if not, then I will try to update the page or add like a specific blog post in the same URL and include the slides and with all the necessary links to Tableau's relevant pages as well. I think that would make sense.
Yeah, I think that'd been better, Thomas, if you just write something in the community forum, then I'll link your slide to the recordings.
Yes. So going back, if you have multiple nodes, you can read from the standby, which is certainly true. It really is. It also has two, I wouldn't say issues, but two things that you need to take care of. One is that your standby is still running on your cluster, so it still puts some resource consumptions in your cluster. And another one is that you have to monitor which one is your secondary and which one is your primary Postgres repo, because those can be swept anytime, and until you restart your system, they will stay there. So you need to monitor that. Okay, so how is the data representation for us on a multi-OS environment? So it's you can aggregate and select multiple. So all the data is recorded for each and every host, and when you select multiple, I don't know, nodes for CPU and memory, you can define if you like to group by those metrics by the worker nodes, or you'd like to use some aggregation. So it's pretty much the same as in Tableau. You can decide if everything will be aggregated or just using group by. Oh yeah, for us, I think that's that should. I hope I understand the question, but you can really customize then how the aggregation works for that specific dashboard, which was designed. What I did show during the demonstration, I think it's really designed for to show like one servers at a time, but you can have multiple things, and also, yeah. In some ways, let me actually show that really quickly. So the way how I build up like Tableau Server monitoring dashboards is like dynamically find out all the usage on the different servers. So let's say we have 3 nodes here, and I see this all the 3 nodes. If I switch to like a single node installation, then I will see only one. But again, you can aggregate these metrics or group by any way you like. All right. Can we get a consolidated report online? You can create like PDF exports from these dashboards, and but again, the way I'm thinking is to create like large screens and great dashboards which tell you the story, and you can drill down and do add annotations for specific points and combine with alerting. But you can also select like a large 1 month, 2 months time period and design dashboards which will look great on exported PDFs. So you can actually generate offline materials from it. Can we integrate this with Microsoft App Dynamics and get a consolidated performance and utilization report in Tableau? Yes, so you can use all these APIs in other monitoring tools as well. You don't have to use Grafana, Influx, or Telegraf. Most of these infrastructure tools give you option to use like plugins, external executables, REST APIs. So you can use Tableau APIs to get GMX data and server status data and put directly into App Dynamics. So many of our clients are using other monitoring tools. You can use Datadog, and I don't know, some people are using still Negios, which is like crazy, but that's the way how it works. So yes, you can use these methodologies with each and every tool as well. So where do I install all these pieces? Windows and Linux both are supported. So all these things are running on both on Windows and Linux. And usually it's advised to install it on a box which is not the server itself, because you need to capture the information if the server goes down. So usually the monitoring has to be on a separate node, probably a small EC2 instance, or if you have a Kubernetes installed there, or on one of your VMs on-prem. Yeah. So why install a third-party BI tool to report a BI tool? Well, not just to avoid it. Again, so Tableau, I mean, with all due respect, and again, I like the tool, but with all due respect, Tableau is terrible to visualize real-time data. Here with Grafana, I can refresh my monitoring dashboards every 5 seconds, and it supports time series databases. Tableau doesn't really support time series databases, and when you press the refresh, a whole lot of things are happening, and it's hard to annotate things, and it cannot alert you on Slack. So for this job, you need a tool which is designed for it, and Tableau is a data discovery tool and definitely not an alerting tool or infrastructure monitoring tool. So don't be, I think it's just not a BI tool. It's for us admins to visualize the infrastructure. And again, it's lower cost. Can we avoid using Kubernetes? Yes. I mean, obviously, I mean, not obviously, but you can install it on standard VMs. And one of the links I shared in this presentation, and I will add to my blog post, is like how to use standard Windows or Linux machines. And you can install all the components in the same node. You don't have to use Docker containers. You don't have to use Kubernetes. For some people, it's easier because it can also give you some additional level of failover capability, but ordinary VMs with any operating systems are working fine, and it works with Docker as well. Is there any way to track individual user sessions and fit its low error for him? It's a good question. What you can do and what we are doing here is you can ingest the WSQL log files and search those log files as well. And I would say that a Logstash or a Splunk would be better for like that particular use case, but you can still use. I didn't show it in this presentation, but there is a log parser in Telegraf, so you can just transfer all of your log files into Influx, and you can search, and you can also parse on the fly these log files and go search for users and search for WSQL sessions. So it's definitely possible. So Tableau can add these types of real-time reported integrated directly, like status page. I mean, they could. One fun fact, I mean, depends how do you define fun. Even Tableau's resource monitoring tool, again, the monitoring tool built by Tableau, they also not using Tableau dashboards. They also use their own JavaScript visualization library to visualize the things in real time. So they're not even using their own tool for the job. Hey, developer program. Hi. But yes, I mean, it would be great to have this kind of charts inside Tableau. But again, the way how it works, that they added it not in the status page, but in a different tool, and they are charging additional licenses because it's a new functionality for it. So actually, they did it. You can have these charts inside Tableau. It's also not in Tableau dashboard format, but you need to pay for that. can I do all of these using a Windows machine? Yes, you can certainly use everything on Windows. So that's a tougher one. So being a Tableau developer till now since 4 years, how to start with things on the server side. So normally workbook performance, extract performance, and slow server performance. So I think the first and most important is to make sure that you can create and understand the performance recordings and use the performance recordings to find out like which sheet is slow on your Tableau dashboard. Is it slow because the query is taking time? Is it because of something else like calculations? And creating performance records is the first step to understand what Tableau does both on desktop and server. Besides that, I need to really find out like what should be the best starting point. But for workbook performance, I would start looking to performance recordings and see what the community wrote about how to read and interpret those things, because that's the best what you can have to use.
Yeah, Thomas, if you can add anything, I just also send the link in the previous Tableau Server Admin User Group recordings. You will find out a bunch of those monitorings. For example, November, I had a recording showing how to optimize server performance, not only monitor the render time, but also how to configure, how to have the control on the server side, making sure server can scale. Extracts back to September last year, I had a deep dive on extracts, not only monitoring delays, but the things you can do to make extracts a lot better. Yes, those great questions. Sorry, Thomas, go ahead. Yeah.
No. I mean, I agree, and I see that there are like a lot of questions about like how to avoid Kubernetes or how to install everything on Windows. So definitely, I think my next post as a follow-up after this will be a guided Windows installation, and also in the same post, I will share the traditional Linux-based installation as well. So I will definitely doing that, because again, not many customers migrated from Windows to Linux, and probably that will stay the same for a period of time. So that will happen. And have you pushed this production since when? So any feedback on the long term? We are using this stack, I don't know, since maybe 2 or 3 years in production at many customers, and not just for Tableau, but for other applications as well. And frankly, I love it. So these are simple things and really designed for simplicity and performance and to be used in production. So that's why these are built in like rock solid programming languages and we have limited functionalities, but everything is limited to do only what you really need. Also, many customers whom I work with, and they were extremely concerned that I didn't suggest support for this tool, but there is also no price support for any of these open source technologies, and if that could raise the, I don't know, the comfort level, then you can certainly start with some Grafana or Influx subscription, and they can also support you in case you'd like to move a lot of mission critical systems on top of it. But again, after all these years, I never had a single issue, and frankly, I'm quite picky when I'm choosing my technologies, what I'm using. So I will be interested to how to upgrade without having to obliterate and recover Well, that's, I think, a great question, like how to upgrade servers, and it's probably not tightly related here. I'm sure, Mark, you have thoughts about it as well, but it really depends, like what infrastructure you have. Usually, you can, or what we usually do is to have the old system, like the not upgraded systems, up and running, but just revoke all the rights, all the permissions, so people can use it in a read-only mode. Then create a new system and upgrade it. And when everything
Yeah,
works fine, just repoint the load balancers
yeah,
without having any right, load time. I don't know if
yeah.
that's,
I'll try to arrange some future talks for this upgrades.
yeah, I
Yeah,
think that will make sense.
yeah,
So can I show my blog for 5 minutes? I can
yes,
definitely. And
yes.
so New Relic, I think New Relic is fine. It's you just have to pay for it, and it doesn't have
Yeah.
that, open source favor, and and just like
Before, okay, yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah,
so just an example. So whatever I did show today, like what is GMX, how to enable GMX on the server, how can you go and understand what's inside these servers, what do these things mean, and how can you set it to your InfluxDB server. These are the things what I'm blogging about, and again I will complete. The same is explaining how to use server info from other tool, what's the TSM API, where you can find the documentation for TSM API, which is again pretty new. It has like 0.0 version, and it's not really linked from anywhere else. But yeah, I'm all for sharing, what I know. So that's great.
great.
Okay,
1 minute
Tableau
left.
Server admins. Why does Apache Web Server and Microsoft Windows are not like each other and have port conflicts? Well, so IIS is usually in some cases installed by default on the Tableau on like the servers, and it's using the standard HTTP port, and that's where Tableau wants to install its own stuff. So by installation guide, you shouldn't have anything installed on your Tableau server, especially not on IIS. So you shouldn't have on IIS. I think it's a great idea to add like a warning into Tableau server installation to avoid like to help you to do this automatically IIS um, like the installation or disabling, but this is just what it is. It's like two web servers can be on the same server, and since Tableau server has to run on Linux, they choose an open source web server which can work anywhere. Yeah, I mean, open source and Linux things are not free. I mean, nothing is free. I mean, it looks like free. It's free for me because I'm not paying that much, honestly. So it's freer than less free. But not, I mean, there is no free lunch. It's just cheaper. It's like, the McDonald's of lunches. Anyway, I think we ran out from time, so I hope that I was able to ask all the questions. And again, I can't express how lucky I am to be here. So thank you for the installation. Thank you installation. Thank you for the invitation, and I hope that it was useful and you had some great ideas, even if you are not going to have this system, but also like how to improve your own one to make it more complete. Thank you,
Thank
Mark.
you. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much,
Elsa.
Thomas. And thank you everyone for being with us today. And next month's session is open for registration. In the chat, I just pinned the link. It is scheduled on February 18th, same time, 9 to 10 a.m. Pacific. Next month, we are going to focus on nothing but server API. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.